If you want to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page to gain access to exclusive videos, take part in Q&As, and watch my retrospectives before they go live on YouTube. In November of last year, Stallone released his new director's cut of Rocky IV, which introduced 40 minutes of new footage. Rocky IV was the most successful film of the franchise, earning $300 million back in 1985. It remains a fan favourite, thanks to its soundtrack, its overuse of montages, and of course having Dolph Lundgren as Drago. It was the Soviet Union versus the United States, but of course the film's plot is kicked off by the death of Apollo, which spurs on Rocky to fight the Russian powerhouse. It gave the movie this emotional gut punch. At the time, the critics were mixed on it, with most leaning on the negative. By the fourth entry in the long-running franchise, there was a great sense that Stallone was failing to offer anything new. Each sequel, Rocky fights a new opponent, and there is an emotional moment in his life to offer some drama. Critics had gotten tired of the formula. It had become very predictable.
Hey, you know something? At the end of this picture now, just between you and I don't want to ruin the surprise, but Sly wins this one again.
Come Rocky IV, it had a very thin story, with 3 lengthy montages eating up a third of the movie's runtime. But despite that, it was hugely entertaining and had a great villain. But it seemed this could be the end of the franchise. Of course it wasn't, with 2 more sequels produced and 2 spin-off movies focused around Apollo's son. When Stallone announced back in August of 2020 that he was going to do a director's cut of Rocky IV, I was surprised. What else could he bring to the table to improve it? In most cases, when it comes to extending movies or offering a new cut years later, it boils down to the film having a reputation of having large chunks of material cut out, or the director had the film taken away from them and couldn't complete their vision. For example, in the case of Alien 3, Richard Donner's cut of Superman 2, Ridley Scott's Legend, David Lynch's Dune, and so on. When they published the news of this new cut of Rocky IV, I do think it was slightly misleading. 40 minutes new footage. I was under the impression the film was going to be 40 minutes longer. Even the IMDb listing has it over 2 hours long, but that is not the case. They have essentially taken out 40 minutes and put back in 40 minutes of new stuff. So this new cut is about 2 minutes longer than the theatrical cut. They have also adjusted the film's aspect ratio from the 1:8:1 to 2:3:5:1, giving a wider look to the film, which I wasn't too keen on, and we'll discuss later. So straight away you are seeing a longer recap of Rocky III, reminding you of Apollo training Rocky. They have taken the energetic opening sequence and played this out in a slower, more emotional fashion. From the offset, Stallone is trying to take this story in a more serious direction. The whole recap of Rocky III is over 7 minutes long, compared to the original cut, where it runs just over 3 minutes. The famous boxing gloves opening the film has been removed, and a new title card has been included. Stallone has removed many of the scenes featuring his son and of course the famous robot that is given to Paulie as a birthday gift. Many fans were disappointed to see it go, but Stallone felt it was silly and goofy and removed any sign of it, which results in a number of Paulie's scenes being left out. Thankfully, Paulie falling in the snow remains intact. Also, the scene with Rocky and Adrian celebrating their anniversary has been removed for this new cut. We find out that Rocky has been offered to fight Drago, but in this new version we discover he is unsure if he should take part, so Apollo wants to challenge him. So it's the same story, but we are seeing extended conversations between Rocky, Apollo and Adrian, which includes a new scene with Rocky talking to his wife in the kitchen, trying to get her to understand Apollo's reasons to fight. She says Apollo thinks he is fighting for the whole country. Drago's arrival at the airport has been removed, probably down to the fact that Bridget Nielsen and her role in the film has been heavily reduced. Stallone was married to her from 1985 to 87, so given a chance he has decided to remove a lot of his ex-wife's scenes. Her performance isn't great in the film, so it's not a huge loss, and more of the focus shifts on to Nikolai. Most of the scenes remain intact, but we are seeing them from different angles, with Stallone relying on a lot of the wide shots instead. The theatrical cut had made use of a lot of close-ups. Before Apollo's fight with Drago, they cut out Rocky's chat with him in the back room. Rocky is offering advice and suggesting Apollo postpone the fight, and Apollo isn't listening. In the new cut, it goes straight to Drago being surprised by Apollo's entrance. On first viewing, I thought the James Brown sequence was running longer, but it runs at the same pace. But scenes have been changed for different angles, and includes more coverage of Apollo's wife, but her interaction with Bridget has been taken out. The big fight runs around 2 minutes longer. with Apollo putting up more of a challenge at the start. The funeral has been extended with Duke now giving a speech alongside Rocky, and there's a shot of Apollo's wife with her children which was cropped and from a different angle in the theatrical cut, so you didn't really see them. One of the new scenes is Rocky speaking with the Boxing Commission, who are only featured in the theatrical cut in a newspaper clipping. In this scene they argue with Rocky not to take part in the fight and don't support his reasons to enter the ring with Drago. The first of the montages has minor changes. All the scenes that are flashbacks are now presented in black and white, and the close-ups of Stallone have been swapped for wider shots. After the montage, there's an additional sequence of Rocky and Adrian before he leaves to Russia, after he has a chat with his son, which shows they have made up after their argument the night before. Once Rocky is in Russia and prepares to train, we see an extended scene with him putting photos up on the mirror. We have additional voiceover as well. The next big montage has some additional shots. Bridget's moments have been trimmed, of course, and we see some new moments of Rocky working out on a punching bag. The third montage has some minor alterations, with shots being changed for different angles, etc. As this is a new remaster, the sound mix has been beefed up for clearer separation of the channels, and the sound effects are more meaty, though Vince DiCola's score is dulled back in areas, which is often common when studios remaster the sound mix. They play up the sound effects and often reduce the music, which always drives me nuts. Vince's score does go full swing, however, when Drago makes his big entrance with some heavy bass. There is an added sequence between Apollo and Rocky before the final fight, as Rocky has a flashback of Apollo, and we see an extended scene of Rocky getting ready before the fight. So the big finale for the third act is a lot different to the theatrical cut. It runs a lot longer, with Rocky putting up more of a fight in the first few rounds, and it takes him a little longer to do some real damage to Drago. Most of the shots have been changed for alternative angles, with wider shots being used. There is more scenes in the corner with Rocky and Drago speaking to their team, and there's a scene with some voiceover as Rocky encourages himself to get back on his feet. Stallone has removed the scenes of his kid and his friends reacting to the fight, as the robot is also featured in the background. And finally, after Rocky gives his inspirational speech, it no longer freeze frames on him holding the American flag. We instead see him walk from the ring, acknowledge Drago, and exit the crowd before the credits roll. This new director's cut essentially offers a story with more meat on its bones. It's the same film, but with scenes extended to offer an expansion on the characters. More time is taken to get to the fights, and we see Apollo's reasons to fight Drago are more clear. His ego doesn't seem so over the top. Rocky seems more level-headed and concerned, but also has a stronger reason to seek revenge for the death of Apollo. There is less urgency to get to the fight, to let the story breathe. I did really enjoy seeing the new material. It's surprising how much Stallone left on the cutting room floor, in efforts to cut to the chase to get Apollo in the ring with Drago, and eventually Rocky's confrontation with the roided up Russian. I can understand Sly's reasons to cut out the more goofy stuff from the film, with Paulie's robot and his interaction with his son, but as Sly starts to strip away the goofy silly moments, and adjust what he already edited back in 1985, he starts to unravel what was so finely tuned with the fights, that it loses a bit of its emotional impact, and the excitement of the final fight is reduced. The surge of adrenaline when you get watching the theatrical cut was no longer there for me in the director's cut. Don't get me wrong, it's still fun to watch, but something was missing. The first act of the movie is a big improvement, a lot more story on offer. After Apollo's death and Rocky chats with the commission about his fight with Drago, and they try to stop him from taking part, this whole new scene was a welcome addition, and it's a shame it was cut originally, as it offers a bit more insight and gives reasons as to why Rocky takes the fight to Russia. As this is a new 4K remaster, the HDR colour grade and changes to its photographic look has improved some scenes to create a more even balance with the flesh tones, but also they have blown out the colours and added a blue filter over the training sequence in Russia. It just blinds you with white and blue. It would naturally do that with the sun bouncing off the snow, but in the theatrical cut its dour look made it more oppressive and difficult to train in, thus creating a more threatening location for Rocky to be in. The change of the aspect ratio has seemed to have come about at the last minute. We see Stallone watching the final edit at his home in the excellent making of, which you can find on YouTube, and it's the correct aspect ratio, so with the quick change it does mess up a lot of the compositions, as the black borders of cropped shots, they now look poorly framed or close-up seem more extreme. The montage of newspaper and magazine covers don't work quite as well, as they have their top and bottom sections cut off. It's great making use of a wide ratio when you cut to wide shots of the arena and locations, but Stallone didn't shoot the movie originally in the scope format. and it also messes up visual continuity in the series. I get a sense Stallone is trying to link it with the Creed films, which also takes advantage of that aspect ratio. But is this new cut better? I don't think so. I still prefer the theatrical cut, because it's silly, over the top, Stallone's ego is in full swing. It just gives you a movie that is pure entertainment. It was nice to see some of the new scenes, and knowing that Stallone had made an effort to write an interesting sequel that would eventually get streamlined heavily in the edit to focus on the energy and excitement for Rocky to train and face up against Drago, with the help of montages, great pop music, and a heavy use of synthesizers by Vince DiCola to get the audience pumped up. Rocky IV had one of the best soundtrack albums of the 1980s. So I appreciate Stallone taking the fourth entry in the series in a more serious direction with this new cut. He may have set out to do that when he wrote the script, to keep it more in line with the original film, but during the course of editing back in 1985, he has shifted it to focus on the energy and MTV style editing, reflecting on what was going on at the time, and it proved the right move, as the film was a smash hit. But as Stallone has got older and wiser, it's clear he wanted Rocky IV to be taken more seriously, to strengthen the death of Apollo and its impact on Rocky. This new cut is definitely worth a watch. You may even think it's better than the original cut, as you may have found the original version far too cheesy, and would appreciate its more serious tone with this director's cut. It's great we have both versions now, and I expect fans are already putting together their own cuts. I suppose it's the same position I'm in with Superman 2. The Donner cut gave us what Richard Donner originally wanted to do with the sequel. Brando's scenes were restored, and the silly comedy from Richard Lester was reduced, but I grew up with the theatrical cut, and that version felt more complete, as the Donner cut was never properly finished. So I still think another cut of Superman 2 is needed to combine both edits. But in the case of Rocky IV, Stallone has managed to get across his true vision, but in his attempts to strike a more serious tone, he has lost some of the fun and excitement during the process.